I can't tell if he's trying to communicate or what, but every once in a while I respond, just in case. Great Aunt Reba was there too, which kind of surprised me. A few years ago, Gammy invited everyone to her house in Christmas, but she accidentally forgot to send an invitation to Great Aunt Reba. She showed up anyway, but she refused to take off her coat, and she just sat there in the living room making us feel guilty. The second cousin Terence was there, and the only reason I mention him is because everyone always says I look exactly like he did when he was my age, which is really depressing. In fact, when I first heard that, I looked through Gammy's photo album to see if it was true, and unfortunately it was. So I guess I'd better start saving up my money for plastic surgery. That cousin Brian was there, and I wasn't too excited to see him either. At the last family reunion, Gammy sent Brian out to get milk, and I rode with him. But he hit a pothole and got a flat tire about half a mile from the house. Brian told me to go to the house and get help, and on my way back it started raining. When I was walked out through the front door, all the ladies in the kitchen started yelling at me for drinking mud on the floor. They told me to take my shoes off and put them in the mudroom, which I did. But all that yelling must have rattled me because I forgot all about Brian's flat tire. And when he came back to the house of half a year later, he wasn't too happy. Uncle Charlie was there, and I was really glad to see him because he's always got his pocket stuffed with candy for us kids. But I didn't always like Uncle Charlie because he used it to tease me when I was little. I used to have this pair of red furry pajamas, and every time Uncle Charlie saw me, he'd say the same thing. For some reason, it really got under my skin. I told Mom how I felt, and she took me to the store to get some new pajamas, which were blue. So the next time I saw Uncle Charlie, I knew I had him beat. But it only took him about 3 seconds to give me a new nickname. The only person who didn't show up to Gammy's was Uncle Lawrence, but that wasn't really a big surprise. Uncle Lawrence is always traveling, and he almost never comes to family gatherings, but sometimes he makes an appearance by webcam, like he did it at Great-Grandpa Christopher's funeral. The last people to arrive were Uncle Gary and his fiancée Sonia. She seemed nice enough, and I guess they are pretty crazy about each other from the way they were acting. Unfortunately, I had to sit right next to them at the dinner table and find out firsthand. They told us on the way down that Sonia was kind of sensitive about the fact that Uncle Gary were married before, so we shouldn't bring it up. Apparently, Sonia told Uncle Gary that he was gonna have to get the tattoo on his left arm removed because it had his last wife's name on it. But I guess it costs a lot of money to get the tattoo removed, so Uncle Gary just added some extra words instead. At least Sonia didn't make Uncle Gary change the tattoo on his other arm. That's the one he got after he ate the 3-pound Australia burger and dance dinner in one sitting. And you have to admit that's pretty impressive. Like I said, just about everyone in the family showed up, and even though Gammy has a big house, some people had to share a room. Whenever we stay at Gammy's, I always get grouped with the people Gammy's calls the bachelors, which means every male who doesn't married yet. This is another group I'm real eager to share a room with, especially since there are only 2 beds in Gammy's guest room. That means some of us have to double up and the rest have to sleep on the floor. Uncle John used to be one of the bachelors, but he got married last spring. I started to wonder if maybe I got married just so he wouldn't have up to sleep in there with the rest of us. It was hard falling asleep with all those people snoring away in the same room with me, away in the same room with me. So eventually I picked up my stuff and looked for someone else to spend the night. The only place I could find was the bedroom next to Gammy's room, so I put my blanket and pillow in the tub and made myself a bed. It wasn't comfortable, but at least I had some privacy. Luckily, when Gammy came up this morning for her bath, I woke up in the nick of time. After that near disaster, I was off for the day, and it was a really long day too, because the rehearsal dinner wasn't until 7 at night. But at least I knew I had the party with the groomsmen to look forward to after that. The problem with these family gatherings is that they're not really geared toward kids. So if you don't like to drink tea and gossip with the ladies, you're sort of out the luck. And everything in Gammy's house is old-fashioned stuff, so there's nothing for your kids to entertain himself with. I complained to Mom a few years ago, and she brought some Legos to keep at Gammy's house. But Gammy glued them together in the one block because she didn't like the little pieces all over the place. Besides that, there are not a whole lot for people to enjoy at Gammy's. She does have to save some hard candy in a jar on her mantle. And last year I had a few pieces, but the candy tasted awful. It was really chewy like bubblegum. I ended up getting really sick and had to lie down to the couch for a few hours. It turns out the candy that the jar is really old. In fact, Dad said that same candy was there where he was he was a little kid, and he even found a picture in Gammy's photos album to prove it. Speaking of pictures, Gammy really needs to update the ones who she's got on her mantle. She had a photo of every single person in the family, and the one of me and Roderick is from when we went to Santa's village about 8 years ago. I kept meaning to throw the pictures away when no one's looking, because that's just the kind of thing that they'll crop off when they do my celebrity biography later on. All the furniture in Gammy's house is old too, and apparently is really valuable. I'm sure there's gonna be a big fight over who gets that once Gammy passes away. In fact, people have already started putting sticky notes on the furniture to get a head start. I think that's pretty disrespectful to Gammy, but I admit there are one or two items I'm hoping to snag for myself. Sunday. During the wedding rehearsal last night, I kept thinking Uncle Gary was gonna take me aside and tell me where the bachelor party is gonna be, but it didn't happen. Then I looked at the reading program and saw my name at the bottom. I tried to get out of it and turn my assistant flower boy dress over to Benzie, but Mom said he was reader this year, besides me and Manny and matching white tuxedos. So while Rolly was having a blast at Jordan Joy's parties, I was holding a basket filled with rose petals for Manny, and I noticed Roderick was taking a bunch of pictures, so I'd be surprised if he hasn't already uploaded them by now. After the wedding ceremony, we went into the hall where the food was being served. But before we started eating, Uncle Gary's best man, Leona, stood up and gave a toast. Leona said he has a really funny story about Uncle Gary and Sonia from when they were dating, and he wanted to share it with everyone. He said that a couple couple of months ago. Uncle Gary took Sonia to a baseball game, and he was planning on breaking up with her because he wanted to start dating her sister instead. But before Uncle Gary could have the breakup talk with Sonia, a plane flew across the sky with a banner behind it. Leonard said there must have been other guy in the stadium with a girlfriend named Sonia, but Uncle Gary Sonia reacted before he had a chance to say anything. Leona said Uncle Gary wanted to explain that it was all just misunderstanding, but he was too afraid that the guys in the seats around them might beat him up if he let Sonia down, so Uncle Gary decided to go along with it. At first I thought Leonard's story as just a joke, but Uncle Gary wasn't exactly jumping out of his chair to say it wasn't true. Anyway, I have a feeling we'll be back next year for Uncle Gary's 5th wedding. After the reception, our family went back to Gammy's house to get changed. It was gathering up my stuff when Dad walked into the room and said Gammy wanted to talk to me. At first, I couldn't figure out why Gammy wanted to speak to me in the private, but then I realized I was about to get the talk. When I walked down the hallway to Gammy's sitting room, I was still nervous, but I was also kind of excited. Gammy's been around the block about a million times, and I figured she's got a lot of wisdom stored up. And to be honest with you, these days I could really use some. I walked in and shut the floor behind me. Gammy was sitting in a fancy chair, so I sat across from her. Once I got settled, Gammy started talking. Gammy told me that most kids my age are in the big rush to grow up, but that if I was smart, I'd enjoy the ride while in less. Now, I've heard this same speech from Mom and Dad about a billion times, so I was kind of disappointed by where this was all heading. Gammy wasn't finished. She said I was getting ready to enter the awkward years and that my lips were gonna get all puffy and my skin was gonna get bad and my head was gonna look too big for my body until my junior or senior year of high school. Then she said I shouldn't let anyone take my picture for the next few years. Because I'd regret it if I did. She told me she gave the same advice to people like Dad and Uncle Gary and Uncle Joe, but they didn't listen to her. But Gammy still wasn't done, so she told me that getting older is no walk in the park and that getting to be her age really stinks. Then she started talking about hemorrhoids and her shingles and a bunch of their other stuff I'd never heard of before. I guess she could tell I was confused, so they started rolling down the stock to show me what she was talking about. That's when I excused myself and quickly left the room. I was glad I got out of there before Gammy decided to take off any more clothes. A half a year later, we packed up our things, got in the car, and headed home. I was just happy the weekend was over. I love my relatives and all, but there's only so much family togetherness I can take. Monday, it was a drag going back to school today because it seemed like everyone went to Jordan Jerry's party, and of course that was all anyone wanted to talk about. Walking through the older kids' hallway was the worst. I'm actually kind of glad I didn't go, so I found out the reason Jordan invited kids in my grade was so to basically use them as servants. Tonight on the news, they announced the winner of the Picture Race Kid contest, and unfortunately I didn't get picked, but I do know the kid who did. It was Scotty Douglas, who lives right down the street. Don't ask me why they picked him because he couldn't even get the slogan right the auditorium. But the people at Picture Race should have done their research done their research, because if they saw Scotty's older brother, they might withdraw twice. Last year, Mom said now that her first semester of school is over, she's going to put her academic career on hold for a while and spend more time with the family. I can't tell you how happy I was to hear that. I'm glad things will finally be getting back to normal around here. In fact, that's been the whole problem this year. There's been a lot of change all of a sudden, and I really like things the way they were before. People like Dad and Uncle Joe have been getting on my case to act more responsible and start getting serious about my future, but the truth is, I think I'm more of an Uncle Gary kind of guy. I guess I'm just not a big rush to grow up right now, and after Gammy showed me what's in store over the next few years, I think I'm gonna take her advice and hang on as long as I can. To stay. Speaking of things getting back to normal, I decided it was time for me and Rolly to put the past couple of months behind us and get our friendship back on track. Me and him have a really long history together, and there's no point in drawing that anyway over something dumb. And to be honest with you, I can't even remember what we were fighting about. So after school today, I went up to Rolly's house to see if he wanted to hang out. He was so happy to see me that it was kind of embarrassing. Rolly asked me if we'd be best friends forever, and he gave me half of the matching locket he's always tried to get me to wear. I told him I wasn't gonna wear the locket because it meant for girls, but really it is that forever word that makes me nervous. I told him maybe we could just take it 1 month at a time, and he seemed pretty satisfied with that. I'll say one thing true. Rolly must have grown a full inch and a half since the summer, so who knows how tall the kid is gonna be. I figured it's a good idea for me to stick with him, and at least until we get to high school, because if he keeps growing at this rate, Rolly's gonna be a good person to have at my side.